What's up, you guys? My name is Liz. If you don't know me, I am a postgrad student at the University of Glasgow, and if you couldn't tell based on the lovely accent, I'm American. Try not to hold it against me. And as an American living abroad, there are a few things that I discovered upon moving to Glasgow for the first time that I just didn't really know about before I came here, and I kind of wish that I had. Not to say that I would change any of my experience here in Glasgow. Living here has meant the absolute world to me. I love it here, and so knowing any of these things in advance would not have changed my decision to come here, but you know, maybe I could have been a little bit better prepared. Just a little bit. And the first thing is that you will experience 4 seasons in a day here in Glasgow. You may have heard this phrase before, 4 seasons in a day. It's no joke. No word of a lie. There was one day a couple of weeks ago when I walked half an hour to the Mitchell Library. When I left my house, it was like this biting cold. Had to wrap my whole face in my scarf. By the time I got to the library, I was sweating, carrying my scarf and my coat because it was just so hot at that point. Then it rained while I was eating my lunch, and by the time I left the library in the evening, it was in the middle of a hailstorm. So, no joke, no lie, no exaggeration. You will get 4 seasons in a day. And just to add on to that a little bit, don't bother with an umbrella. It's not gonna help as much as you think it will. It doesn't hurt to have one on hand, you know, keep one in your bag, just in case there's like a downpour situation and you're caught out. But for the most part, if the rain is bad enough to need an umbrella, the wind is bad enough to turn your umbrella inside out. So it's not always as helpful to have an umbrella as you'd like it to be. Generally speaking, the best thing you can have on hand is a hat or a hood or a big scarf that can wrap around your head. Number 2 is the subway. The subway in Glasgow is somehow the easiest and hardest public transportation system I have ever had to master. That includes Amtrak and Bus Éireann. So my Americans and my Irish, you get it. The way the subway functions is that it is just a circle. There are 2 lines on the same path going opposite directions, the inner and the outer, and it's just a circle, which makes it pretty easy to figure out how to get to your stop. They're all listed in every single subway station. Plus, if you miss your stop or you get on the wrong subway, i.e. inner when you meant to get on outer, you'll get there eventually. They all stop at the same stops. You'll get there eventually. So navigation on the subway is fairly simple, but what's difficult is the timetable. Not so much that it's gonna take you time to get used to the timetable, it's just that the timetable itself is frustrating. Monday through Saturday, the subway stops running at 11:30 at night, and on Sundays it only runs from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And what's difficult about this is just if you're out and about, you don't want to be on the last subway. Like, you don't ever want to aim for catching the last subway. I did this a couple of weeks ago. I was at a friend's place on the south side, on the other side of the river, and I managed to catch the last subway, and I still got stuck on the south side and had to Uber home. You will never get a subway home. If you're out on a Friday or Saturday night, just don't expect to get a subway home. Expect to take the bus or an Uber or any other kind of taxi, because the subway's just not it. And on another note regarding the subway, there are some areas in Glasgow that you just won't be able to get to by subway at all, because again, it's just a circle. So for example, all of my favorite cafes, or many of my favorite cafes, are in Finniston, which is just right smack dab in the middle of that circle. So it's about a 15 to 20 minute walk from any subway stop to get to any of those cafes or to the Mitchell Library. Taking the subway from any point on that line is not going to get you to Finniston faster. And the 4th thing I really wish I'd known, which is the 3rd thing I wish I'd known about the subway, is actually also to do with football, and that is to learn the schedule at Ibrox. Know the schedule, because game days, it will be damn near impossible to find any room to breathe on the subway, let alone sit down. The football fans in this city just come out of the woodwork, and they all flock to the subway, and there are only so many cars on the subway. So if you can avoid the subway on game days, do it. Number 5 is the perpetual dampness in this city. Glasgow is not a dry city at all. But what that means, especially for someone like me who is always cold, is that even though the temperature in the winter doesn't drop particularly low, I'm used to it being much colder temperature-wise in New York. Even though the temperature doesn't drop particularly low, it's a wet cold and it lives in your bone. And it also lives in your flat with you. I would wake up in the mornings and just have dragon's breath. I could see my breath in my bedroom. This is owing to some historical conservation laws, it can be very difficult for flat owners and landlords to change out the windows for double glazed, which is great for insulation. Unfortunately, in a lot of the tenement buildings, it just doesn't happen. You end up with a lot of single glazed windows. So be on the lookout for that when you're looking for accommodation. Number 6 is that Glasgow is an absolute cultural hub, and I wish I had known that before I came here because I would have taken advantage of it sooner. Not only is the population of Glasgow insanely diverse, it attracts so many different kinds of people from all over the world, but thanks to the cultural institution Glasgow Life, which runs all of the libraries and museums and all that jazz, there is so much free access to cultural heritage institutions, which is very cool for me because my whole degree is in cultural heritage. And so having that free access, especially as a student, I'm paying rent, I'm paying tuition, and wildly helpful. I can use any library in the city if I need to find, you know, a particular book, particular piece of literature for my schoolwork, or just to enjoy. I can go to the museums and the galleries and just experience such a wide and diverse array of culture, absolutely free of charge, which is fantastic. Also, such a wide array of eateries here in Glasgow. There are so many different worldly cuisines all around you all the time. It can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. I just wanna try all of it. And along that same vein, with regards to the eateries and the diversity of the eateries, Glasgow is so vegan friendly. Like, insanely vegan friendly. This is probably the most vegan friendly place I've ever lived. And I personally am not a vegan. I refer to myself as like an 80% vegetarian. Like, I eat meat in theory, although in practice not so much. And that is in part because this city makes it so easy and accessible and affordable to not eat meat, to go for, you know, non-dairy alternatives, plant-based alternatives. Also, it helps that my flatmate is a vegetarian. Thing number 8 that I wish I'd known before I moved here, which will feed into things 9 and 10, is that people make Glasgow, and if you've been here before, you'll know that that is kind of the motto of this city. And it's so true. Glasgow honestly reminds me of New York in that there's this sense of community here that you don't really get in other bigger cities. To me, Glasgow is the type of place that you live, and there are plenty of cities that are great for visiting. So like, I mean, I've never lived in Edinburgh, but for example, I think Edinburgh is a great place to visit. It's a great place to be a tourist. Glasgow is somewhere to live. This is a place to make your friends and put down roots and just to live here. The city itself is just so open and welcoming, and it's because of the people who live here. And once you've lived here for a little while, you will come to thing number 9, which is that you can't go anywhere without running into somebody that you know. This is just a fact of life. You will run into people if you're out and about. You will see people that you know. And thing number 10 that I honestly don't even think I could have known before moving here, but now that I've lived here for a while, I know it to be insanely true, and that is that you will never get away from Glasgow. No matter where you go, no matter how far you go from this city, you will always find connections back to it. Seriously, everyone in the world is somehow connected to this city, I am convinced. Because the way I have found connections through my friends back home and the friends that I've made here and family members, and we're all interconnected, and the epicenter is Glasgow. Glasgow is the epicenter. 6 degrees of separation, my ass. It's just Glasgow. The world is smaller once you've lived here, and not in a bad way, and actually in a very good and comforting kind of way. I'm the type of person who has always viewed the world as like big and wide and wonderful, and I just want to explore everything and see it all. And since I've moved here and the world has shrunk a little bit, I'm realizing not that the world is smaller necessarily, but that it just feels so much more accessible. So even if you do end up moving away from Glasgow, just know that Glasgow will never really leave you. Oh, what? I didn't expect to say that. Now I'm gonna cry. All right, well, that's 10 things I wish I knew before I moved here. I'm glad you know them now, and I really hope you come here and experience those things for yourself, including the subway on a game day, because you know what? It feels like a rite of passage at this point. I hope you found this video informative. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!